Hey folks, I wanted to talk about Cruor's Embrace. This item has the potential to be one of the most interesting items the necromancer has in their arsenal. It basically allows Blood Surge to take the role of Corpse Explosion. And that allows for a lot of unique synergies. The problem is, it needs max life, crit, and core skills. If it had those, oh my gosh, the amount of potential this would unlock. So rather than complain and just spend this whole video, I want to showcase what this would do if it had those stats. So let's take this, let's replace Corpse Explosion in my River of the Dead build. You've seen me a bunch. And the reason I'm replacing Corpse Explosion is because I want to upgrade from Black River to Doombringer. See, Doombringer fits the blood power fantasy. It scales your life, gives you those big overpower chances. Because my life right now 80,000. If I pop some elixirs, I have 115,000 HP as a necromancer, and it's great. And currently, Overpower also has a huge bunch of bugs, and not bugs. There's a bunch of ways that Overpower can be better. I'm going to go over those at the end of the video. But for now, I'm going to use this 115,000 life to scale Blood Artisan's Curious. So, Blood Artisan's Curious launches bone spirits based on blood orbs. We produce blood orbs by consuming corpses. This consumes corpses faster than Black River with Corpse Explosion. So there's the synergy. We use those blood orbs to spawn those bone spirits and reduce our ultimate cooldown, giving us Infinite Army of the Dead. We also go over here, get Permanent Flesh Eater, because we're always destroying every corpse ever, along with Fueled by Death, and Blood Surge becomes a really efficient essence generator. Now, normally I run Shadow Mages with this, but because I'm going to be talking, I'm going to run Cold Mages, because there is a chance where you go to one essence and then you're kind of stuck. And I am going to put Bone Spirit and run Dreadful Bone Spirit. Now, I don't need Cold Mages if I'm running this normally, but I'm distracted, I'm going to mess up. And I'm going to go into a Pit 81 and just show you what this looks like to just be an immortal god, not care about anything, and delete the world. I'm not going to kill the boss, because that boss is going to take like 4 hours because of the lack of correct stat distribution on Cruor's Embrace. Now, the designers definitely had ideas for it to go in that direction. They just didn't let themselves have that much fun. So, I got warmed up a little bit rusty. So look at my Army of the Dead cooldown. When I cast Bloodlance, being like CC'd. When I cast Bloodlance, it's picking up these blood orbs and launching bone spirits. And every Bloodlance cast is giving me 7.5 seconds of Army of the Dead cooldown, because I always have an infinite number of corpses to work with. Like, look at this shit melt. It's great, right? Go to the next area. Actually, I need to delete some corpses to get those blood orbs. Alright. Next area. I should already have an Army of the Dead rolling, but, you know, distracted, playing a little bit worse. And if you're wondering, like, where are my curses on my bar? I'm actually running Blood Moon Breaches, so that everything is just permanently cursed by my minions. I don't have to think about it. Oh, that's bad. I need to move. Cool. Deleted the world. That guy's just going to keep running away. I'm not going to deal with him. should have run the corpse tendrils spawn blood orbs, because then it just gets excessive. But yeah, this is a pretty fun way of going about the game. I gotta remember to not press blood surge twice, because I'm used to the habit of, you know, corpse explosioning twice. So every time you see me, that's unfortunate. Probably should have run Paranormal Blood Surge just for the extra bloodness cooldown, so it's safer. That's what I did last time when I was running this, because I actually put ranks in both Blood Surge and Bloodlance, and it was pretty effective. So yeah, I'm making pretty good time. Everything's working out, but I'm currently pretty far below my crit cap on my I hate that mob that just infinite tanks when it has its barrier up. Just doesn't take damage. So, not a speedrun build, but fairly effective. Creates tons of blood orbs. I'm repeating myself because I'm tired. I usually have a lot more to say other than just same 4 lines. So, as you can see, it's pretty effective at clearing trash. There are a couple problems with this. This Blood Surge is actually a really good range. If it's going to replace Corpse Explosion, I need to be able to use Blood Surge at range and benefit from all of the things Blood Surge does. So as it currently stands, I don't get Paranormal Blood Surge procs if Cruor's Embrace is done from range. And the original Blood Surge, if this Blood Surge hits that body and that body explodes, I won't get a stack of Paranormal Blood Surge. And a fix like that would allow for like super fast rapid fire back-to-backs where you're alternating between overpowering on Blood Surge, overpowering on Bloodlance. The reason this needs max life is that like the blood power fantasy is just, you know, running around with tons of health and being able to like charge in and tank, and you know, Doombringer being an option, you want max life on everything. So this needs max life. The current 3 modifier meta means that it's really hard to get crit cap. And the way we treat crit as any crit build is it's basically a resistance. You get to 70% resist all, and then you're done. So crit, if you're running crit in your build, you basically just balance your gear to get 100% crit. Like that's how it works. That's how the meta works. You know, for armor, so you don't have 8,000 armor or 9,000 armor. You just get the armor cap and then figure out what the rest of your build is. And the current way crit is done is, as long as Grasping Vein is in the game, it's get crit cap. And to put these gloves on, I have to give up like 20-something% crit, because I've got crit and then I also got Bone Critical Strike Tempers to get me that last little bit. So gloves roll higher on crit chance, like total. The total number is like 50% more or 40% more than rings. So to replace the crit on gloves, I need to take 2 different slots of crit on my rings. So not having crit on gloves is just horrible because it means I have to put crit in 2 different slots on rings to make up for it. And that doesn't feel good. Or I have to put crit on my neck. And necks are like even more ridiculous to find because like everyone wants movement speed almost. Like everyone's going to want some plus to a skill. And in this case, Blood wants max life on everything. So it, like, I can't put crit on my neck. It's just not happening. I mean, I could take Avulsion off and I would put crit over it, but it wouldn't feel nice. So this needs crit. Like, in the current 3 modifier system, needs crit. So max life crit. And the reason it needs core skills is I'm currently using a build that has 1, 2, 3 core skills. And there are other variations where you could turn Blood Surge into a like damage dealer and actually have your damage coming from more than one source. Especially if you're doing, you know, overpower shenanigans with Paranormal Blood Surge. So just it needs it. And like the action efficiency of casting 1 Blood Surge and destroying every corpse is amazing compared to using Corpse Explosion. So that's a powerful aspect, even if the aspect itself doesn't do much damage. The fact that it just deletes corpses is really handy. So, you know, knowing Blizzard's itemization, they usually want to keep the 4th slot as something that's flavor and like chance on hit heal. For Blood, they don't need it, like at all. For a Blood build, this 1 Blood Orb is healing me for like 30,000, 40,000 or something. So like any chance on hit heal amount you can put on this is going to be irrelevant. It's just, it doesn't matter. Now, if you want to put that on just because you like to put flavor items, sure, but probably find a different flavor that's like interesting, and even if it's minor, you know, that would, I'd prefer that. Thank you. Other things that would make Blood valid. So Blood is in a really bad place in the current season. The reason I've been running Blood Artisan's Curious, and this is probably why I'm running the best Blood build, like according to the Sanctuary Discord, everyone's like, you have the best Blood build, and I'm like, but I'm not really a Blood build, I'm kind of just like a Bone Spirit build that happens to use Blood to trigger. Overpower doesn't scale the way it should. And what I mean by that is, like, this Blood Lance does like 5,000 damage. When I fully spec'd into it and like put Inner Calm and other things to make my Blood Lance do more damage. Let's go back out of town because you'll see the proper values. Put my other gloves back on so you can see what it looks like with a higher rank. Dun, dun, dun. Alright, with a higher rank of Blood Lance and Shaco, I have 14 ranks of Blood Lance. So this should do some level of damage, but it does like 5 million on an overpower, when Shadow is getting Blight to do 400 million. It's completely the wrong order of magnitude. And overpower has been an incredibly hard thing for Blizzard to balance, because if it works okay for Necros, Barbarians walk in and press 1 button and Duriel dies. That's how it was. So Blizzard nerfed overpower on classes that were, you know, actually overpowered and didn't do anything to address Necros. But I actually have a bunch of solutions that would fix that. So this ability, Gore Quills, this aspect, when you cast Blood Lance, it will consume blood orbs to do bonus damage. There's a lot of problems with Gore Quills that prevent blood from being a good overpower build. And one of them is Gorquils. When the Blood Lance I cast automatically overpowers from either Rathma's Vigor or Supernatural Blood or Supernatural Blood Lance or Rathma's Vigor. When either of these calls the Blood Lance itself to overpower, the Gorquils spawned will not also overpower. And that means Gorquils is a utility object and not damage. If Gorquils was buffed to overpower when Blood Lance overpowered, it would be like a 2.5 times modifier on Blood Lance overpower that also has a counterplay in PvP because they're like launched at separate times, and it would be interesting at the very least. So, and it would be a buff specific to Necromancer that doesn't interfere with the problems of overpower with Barbarians and Druids. I also think that Gorquils needs to work with Blood Surge, because Blood Surge in higher pits, you can't move around always to go and find the Blood Orbs. You need to consume them fast. And there's another issue with Blood Surge, or with Gorquils as well. Gorquils, when you overpower, when you consume Blood Orbs, you charge up Rathma's Vigor. Rathma's Vigor says whenever you heal for 8,000 life, which my Blood Orbs heal for like double that. My Blood Orbs still only give me 2 seconds of cooldown reduction. So if I cast a Blood Lance and it overpowers, I'm just going to go out of town. If I cast a Blood Lance and it overpowers, this will start counting up. If I had a bunch of Blood Orbs, this is problematic because I don't have anything. Oh, I have to actually put this back on. Alright, so if I have a bunch of Blood Orbs around here, when I cast my 2 Blood Lances, my 3rd Blood Lance should overpower, right? So each Blood Lance should consume 3 Blood Orbs, which will cool down Rathma's Vigor by 6 seconds. And they do. But notice that 3rd Lance didn't consume it, because Gorquils has a slight activation delay, preventing the 3rd Blood Lance from overpowering when by the time the 2nd Gorquils is being consumed, is finished being consumed, the 3rd Blood Lance is already cast, so Blood is losing 33% of its damage because it just doesn't have Rathma's Vigor functioning properly with Gorquils. So Gorquils needs to consume the orbs immediately, even if the heal still trickles in, because the heal coming in those slightly trickled bursts is really nice. So huge buff to Blood's damage would be if Gorquils worked with Rathma's Vigor so that every 3rd Blood Lance, if you had been bothering producing enough Blood Orbs, should activate Rathma's Vigor. And I say Blood's damage because I think Gorquils needs to work with Blood Surge. I think I already said that. Okay. The other thing is, Gorquils shouldn't even be an aspect. It should be in the skill tree. And where Gorquils belongs is right here. You see Transfusion? Nobody uses this because it has a cooldown. It has a 4-second cooldown. Like, what? No. I'm sorry. But if this was the Gorquils aspect, and it applied to Blood, and it worked properly with Rathma's Vigor, it would be really interesting to put 1, 2, or 3 skill points into to gain 1, 2, or 3 Blood Orbs on use. Because there might be a Blood Surge build that has low Blood Orb production, and they just want to consume 1 blood orb per blood surge, or 2 blood orbs per blood surge, and like, that's their pacing. So this would be a valid place to put Gorquill's aspect into. The final thing that would make and because Gorquills should go here as a skill, it would free up a damage aspect for blood builds, improving their versatility. So if this Gorquills was replaced with, Inner Calm, basically I'd get a 30% damage modifier without changing anything else. So if this moved to the skill tree, blood gets a 30% damage modifier, and I could get my Blood Lances to overpower for about 10 million, and then be multiplied by Gorquills 2.5 times to have the overpowers hit for like about 25 million. Now, I mean, that sounds a lot better than the current 5 million, right? But, remind you, Shadow is doing 800 million DPS. So, it's getting there. The other thing is, the way Rathmo's Vigor works, as far as I understand it, is if you heal less than 7,959 health with a Blood Orb, nothing happens. If you heal any amount more equal to or more than 7,959 health from a Blood Orb, you get this Rathmo's Vigor proc. I think Rathmo's Vigor should be cumulative, because it makes sense that as you get more health and more healing received, you should be able to proc this more than once per Blood Orb. So an in-game Necromancer, say one with, more than 115,000 health, like if I equip a shield, I get to like 135,000, and then if I put equipped healing receive, I should be able to proc this with like every cast of Bloodlands, and it should just apply to the next cast. And that should be where the scaling comes from, because the Blood Power Fantasy is you build into life, you build into, this massive tanky health pool, and that turns into damage. And if Rathma's Vigor was uncapped and was cumulative, so lower level players, if they were under the cap, they could work up towards it. If they were over the cap, they could work up towards the next cap, or the next breakpoint. It would just make sense. And like every other keystone scales, Ossified Essence scales as you get more max essence. Callan's Edict scales as you get more minions. I mean, there's a limit, but it does scale. Shadow Blight scales the more dot damage you have. Rathma's Vigor basically just doesn't. You just hit the breakpoint pretty early on, and then it just doesn't get any more powerful. So, if it scaled, it would be great. Maybe you change it to 1 second and half the value, so the breakpoints are come in smoother. Cool. This should just scale. And if you did all that, someone who is as geared as me could probably overpower every Blood Lance. I'd throw 2 Blood Lances a second. That's about 50 million damage, which is, pretty good considering I'm still doing about 1.2 of these a second for like 100 million damage if Cruor's was fixed and I was casting at a regular pace. And so that would be, 150, 200 million DPS, which compared to Shadow it's in the same order of magnitude. That's all we need, So maybe someone can push it further, maybe someone can't, but it's at least within the same realm of possibility. And the Rathma's Vigor scaling would make things like this Blood Orb healing actually have value. Like, I'd look at that stat that rolled and be like, oh hell yeah, I get something out of it. Cool. So yeah, if this was fixed, we could do a lot of weird synergies with Blood Surge replacing Corpse Explosion. And I haven't really even thought about how it could work with other builds, but like, I know there are shadow effects that maybe you make like a Shadow Blight build and they want to use Corpse Explosion for some reason, or maybe Bone doesn't want to spend a lot of time casting Corpse Explosion. They just want to snap, get their Flesh Eater. Maybe they run Blood Surge. Maybe the new aspect that replaces Gore Quills has something that makes Blood Surge work better with these other builds. I don't know what the possibilities are, but that just opens up a huge space. If this became a universal tool and was core skills, health, and crit, and whatever flavor you want to add to it, go ahead. Obviously, the damage on the consuming a corpse is also too low. Like, it does like under 1 million damage. It's like I can consume every corpse and it will like crit for like under 2 million. It's, oh my god. Oh no. But that's just a matter of like tweaking some numbers. Oh, and finally, you know, it'd be really awesome that would bring blood like fully into the fold. One of the complaints a lot of people have about bone mages is that keeping them alive with any amount of attack speed is impossible. Like, you can have points in Skeleton Priest and they'll just die before the priest can heal them if they have enough attack speed. But I messed around with them as blood, and because I am constantly getting blood orbs from throwing blood lance and just auto-consuming all these blood orbs that are around, my bone mages were alive, and they were casting a bunch of bone spears. Problem is, I had to put bone spear on my bar, and like, where? I already had to get rid of, Decrepify off my bar by using Blood Surge. No, not Blood Surge, Blood Moon Breaches. And I'm getting rid of Corpse Explosion by putting Blood Surge here. So like, there's no room. What if bone mages would also work with Blood Lance? That would be interesting, because it would count as your Blood Lance, and bone marrow is where blood is made. So it's not much of a stretch. I also think all bone damage affixes need to be changed to physical damage, because like, blood is the redheaded stepchild. I mean, it's literally red, of the Paragon board. And like, yeah, there is blood gets blood, there's other things, but like, all of this bone damage should just also be physical damage. Like, there's no reason to have those separate. And by changing this to physical damage, you'd also open up the possibility for the Ring of Mendeln to be useful, since that's physical damage. And I think it would make sense for this like blood minion power fantasy, and there is a blood minion power fantasy with Blood Moon Breaches. Like, the blood minion power fantasy is your minions don't actually do damage. They're utility. They give you power. And then if I could equip Mendeln, I wouldn't have to put damage, Paragon into my minions, and my minions would still do damage because they're benefiting from all my triggers. I don't know. Mendeln would probably need to overpower to actually have that work. But, whatever. Now that I think about it, nobody uses skirmishers because, like, this just isn't good enough. What if they could overpower? Just saying. Actually, no, defenders. Yeah, defenders should have the ability to overpower, because they're like the beefcakes. Like, that's their theme, right? So they taunt and they overpower when you overpower. Yeah. Alright, I've rambled for a long time. I have no idea of the quality of this video, if anyone's going to keep watching. But, yeah, I'd love to see these turned into good gloves that, like, multiple different specs have the option of wearing if they want to phase out corpse explosion and get something that benefits them all around, which having plus to core skills would do, having health would do, and having crit would do, and having something flavor that's interesting. Probably essence, but like, I don't know, I think something just super quirky would be fun that's like not even a heal. Make it give minions attack speed on chance on hit. I would, oh my god, that would be hilarious. I'm just like, wait, what? And I hope the mid-season patch does a pass and fixes Cruor's Embrace and makes it good. Because this build is really fun. Alright, I've over-rambled. I think I've covered everything. Yeah. Okay, good luck, YouTube. I'll link my regular builds below.